Hey, hello there. Welcome to another beautiful morning up north. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Nice to have you along here, live from Lake Wissota. It's a Monday morning, January 12th. Abigail Swetz from Fair, Wisconsin is my guest in just a minute or two to talk about the ongoing decision by Republicans in the legislature to prioritize anti-trans bills and other ongoing culture war division tactics. There's other things they could be working on. Same goes with the federal government. We're going to review some proposed restrictions on youth gender affirming care and how people can comment on all of that. But first, let's do a little housekeeping. We are expanding to 4 days live this week. On Wednesday, we're going to talk to financial expert Sean O'Malley about your money and the markets and an economy that is certainly very bubble heavy right now. On Thursday, Sean Fettiplace from Main Street Alliance will talk about an upcoming day of action and an upcoming gubernatorial forum. And of course, it wouldn't be Friday without a visit from Dr. Kristen Lyerly. So Sean O'Malley on Wednesday, Sean Fettiplace on Thursday, Dr. Kristen Lyerly Friday, all live at 9 a.m. right here on my Facebook and YouTube channels. So you ask, well, what about tomorrow? Well, tomorrow I'll be on somebody else's YouTube page. You might recall from our civic media days that Chad Holmes would join us from 98.9 WXCO in Wausau. Well, now his show has been altered. He's live on the radio in Wausau for the 8 a.m. hour. And then during the 9 a.m. hour, his show is on the WXCO YouTube page, which you can find at youtube.com/@ 989 WXCO. So I'm looking forward to joining him about this time tomorrow. Let's see. I'm not going to dwell too much on the Packers-Bears game because why? We are about 10 weeks away from the start of baseball season, so I'm just going to try to focus on that. I will say that perhaps the path of least resistance for the Packers is to have Matt LaFleur and John Harbaugh just swap jobs. Maybe both just need a change in scenery. Maybe that's what the Packers and the Ravens need as well. So if that's the case, Matt, consider Baltimore. I hear it's lovely during football season. And John, with your ties to the Upper Peninsula, we'd love to have you in the Midwest. If you know any good kickers, I believe we're going to be having some openings here. We'll have our calendar, our Do Something calendar. We'll have our history lesson for the day. And of course, our question of the week that comes in on our Sunday morning newsletters. Sign up for it at upnorthnewswi.com. I'll tell you about this week's new question coming up in just a bit. Okay, let's talk about what the legislature was doing last week to start off 2026. Not necessarily anything productive, but definitely making time for some anti-trans bills. So we'll talk about priorities in Madison and in Washington as well. And Abigail Swetz joins us now from Fair, Wisconsin. Learn more at fairwisconsin.com. Abigail, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to talk.
Absolutely. We had you on the radio show a couple months back and said we really wanted to have you back because one of the topics we didn't have time for dealt with gender affirming care. And well, just in time for the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, to work on some new restrictions that we'll talk about in just a sec. But as always, we'd like to start at the state level first. And it seemed like the Wisconsin legislature came back into session last week to start off the new year, and it feels like they're picking up right where they left off in terms of things that are not necessarily priorities when it comes to the economy or education or anything like that. As you're monitoring the legislature, where do you see their priorities right now, and what do you think about them?
Thanks for asking. So when I was thinking about how do we talk to the legislature about these bills that they are continuing to push that are so anti-trans, really targeting our trans community, I just kept thinking about how there is good polling that shows that in 2024, all those anti-trans ads did not drive votes. Some of the people who ran them won, but that's not why. And it just feels so out of touch to me that there are legislators who I would consider anti-equality who are really pushing such a disgusting agenda about a very small, very vulnerable, very loved population. And I think we saw that love in the legislature this week in those hearing rooms, not from not from the people pushing these bills, but from the people responding, joining FAIR and other incredible organizations and just individuals who are getting out there to say to Wisconsinites, to trans Wisconsinites, that we see you, you belong in this state, you belong in this country, you belong in this world, and we're going to fight for you to make sure that the people in power actually realize that and do something about it, as in change the way they are treating you, or we change them.
Can you tell us a bit about more about the bills that are under consideration that people were commenting on, and what would happen if they were to be enacted? They won't, thankfully, with Governor Tony Evers in office, but they take the time to take up these bills anyway. So what would they do? What is the agenda that's at play here?
Yeah. So there were three bills that received hearings this last week. This last week lasted about a decade in our world. We had a bill that was heard about names and pronouns in schools. We had a bill that was heard about civil liability and gender affirming care for youth. And we had a bill that was heard about birth certificates.
Oh, I think you might have froze there, Abigail. I'm waiting to see if you come
And
back up. There you go.
by
Okay.
by people in power, that this is a winning issue, and it's so wrong. All within 3 days, we had these two hearings about these three bills. We testified really robustly with a community of LGBTQ plus people and strong allies to really try and put a stop to these bills ever going any further than they are already. Even though we know they will be stopped, as you pointed out, that our governor has stated very publicly he will not sign any bill that creates an unwelcoming environment in our state, and these would, right? So a little more specifics. The bill that was about pronouns and names at school was really about trying to push an agenda that divides parents and school staff in a way that is just not real. And as a former middle school educator who navigated these situations quite a bit as a Gender and Sexuality Alliance advisor as well, I really saw the need for, when a student is in the school feeling safe and able to ask for a different name or pronoun to be used, then the school staff really needs to follow the lead of that student, have conversations with that kid. How can we make it possible to help you have this conversation with other people in your life? Because the kid is the most experienced and the most knowledgeable of what they might encounter in that conversation with other people in their lives. And that's why we can't have a one size fits all mandate coming from a legislature saying you have to get permission immediately from a parent about a change in name or pronoun at school. It's about the kid knowing their own identity, but also knowing their own experience, and making sure that conversation can be navigated safely and with support. And this bill would really fly in the face of that, and that's a problem. And then the other two bills that were heard on Thursday, interestingly enough, they were heard simultaneously by the committee. Committee chair said that it was because the topic was the same for both, and that is not true. The topic was healthcare and the topic was birth certificates. If there's a through line to those two bills, it is that the topic was anti-trans discrimination. And so we testified as robustly as a community again, and really tried to stop those. The one about gender affirming care for youth is not the bill banning it, which was heard in March, but is a bill that would sort of try to do that in a different name. It would create an entirely different version of medical malpractice that would really, really create a horrible chilling effect, and make it very difficult for providers to really provide this care, which is why it was so important for us to show up. And then the other one was about birth certificates. It is currently Wisconsin law that you are able to change the gender marker on your birth certificate after a very, very bureaucratic, complicated, long process, kind of publicly outing process. It's not a good process. We need to fix it. There's a bill actually about making it safer out there right now, but that's not the bill that got the hearing. The bill that got the hearing would eliminate the ability to do that. Even if there was a court order, it wouldn't be allowed. And so we stood up and said, that's really problematic for a lot of reasons, and specifically because it just does not honor the dignity and experience of trans people.
When you talk about, we use the phrase one size fits all, and it seems like these things are looking for that one size fits all, meaning either folks who are anti-trans or for parents to have all of the authority in something, which, again, I feel like there's this conservative fantasy land where every parent is, equally compassionate and understanding, when the fact of the matter is, for so many kids, not the least of which are in our LGBTQ communities, there is not the kind of harmony that one would expect. And so to give the parent pretty much all of the leverage in how they are treated at school is not the healthiest thing for some of these children.
It's a really important point, right? And it is difficult to talk about because we do want to believe that every parent would have a really positive, helpful, supportive reaction to this kind of conversation, or to any kind of conversation about identity, about who you are as a kid. But that is not our reality. And until it becomes our reality, and we will keep working to make sure that we educate the general public about identity and about the impact of what those conversations, when they go well, can mean, because we know from research that when a child is able to use the name and pronoun that affirms them in every aspect of their life, in the family at home, in a community aspect, in a school, that suicide ideation, depression, anxiety drop dramatically for this community. We know that, right? So we want to have those supportive conversations, but we have to make sure that the kid, who knows if how it's gonna go, maybe, is able to lead in that situation. And the other thing, I would say, and I said this in front of every legislative hearing we have had, is that the mental health challenges of our LGBTQ plus youth, those are not, predetermined outcomes. Those are things we can make a difference in. They are about societal pressure. And if we could make a difference in the lives of these students by being affirming and supportive adults in all aspects, including those in power, what a difference that would make. Because we know the alternative has a really negative impact. So what if we could be affirming and inclusive at every level? Wow, what a difference that would make for so many youth.
Abby, let's turn to the federal proposed rules from CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And it's about, again, youth gender affirming care. But I feel like it will continue to be important for some time to come to start any discussion by explaining what gender affirming care is and what it isn't, because it feels like there's a lot of extreme and alarmist misinformation out there about what it is that gender affirming care involves and the ways that it provides support and health, rather than, we hear all about, genital mutilation and things like that. So let's get to the heart of what the real issue is that we're talking about.
Thank you for that question, because it is something that is very, very misunderstood by design. So here's the level set of reality, right? So a few things to keep in mind. First of all, gender affirming care is medically necessary. It is highly individualized. It is age appropriate, which we'll get through to in a second, right? It is also safe and effective, very strongly researched, up to a very strong standard of care. And most importantly, it is life affirming for these trans youth, right? It is essential healthcare. It makes it possible for our trans kids who need it to live full, healthy lives where they thrive and turn into the awesome adults that we know this state and this country and this world really need. So I think that's really important to make sure we understand first. I'll also, just to address a few of the pieces of misinformation that you rightly referred to. So the earliest form of gender affirming care that would ever be prescribed is actually at the age of puberty and not before it. So when we hear these very these lies about the age of kids and when they are getting medical treatment, it's really important to know there is no medical intervention for gender affirming care for a kid before the age of puberty. Before the age of puberty, there is definitely strong mental health support. There is definitely strong support in terms of like navigating a social transition, maybe a change in name or pronoun, like we just talked about, maybe a change in expression, a haircut, different kinds of clothing. That's not the same as medical treatment. And so gender affirming care is really about the age, like I said, age appropriateness, of puberty and beyond. And at that point, we're talking potentially, and here's the other part, highly individualized, like all good medical care. If I go in with a certain thing that I need help with my doctor, and you have the same diagnosis, we're still going to get different care because we are different people. And so it is always, like all good medical care, highly individualized. But in terms of puberty being the start of any kind of intervention, it could be puberty pause medication, which is very strongly used for other situations as well. For example, if a child who is cisgender starts puberty too early for it to be safe for a body, then puberty pause medication would be used in that sense. So it is also used in other senses, but in terms of a trans kid, it would be able to pause puberty so that changes to the body would not be made that would feel discordant with their gender identity, so that they're able to take the time to really figure out what is that next step, right? And for many kids, it could be hormone therapy, where the puberty that would start at a certain point, determined, highly individualized with the medical professional and family, all parental consent the whole way through, would be the puberty of the body that feels like home for this kid, right? And so that's why it's so important that this access is strong and easy to access, in terms of it exists in all places, and also is always a strong conversation with the medical professional who understands the standards of care, and the parents who are involved in every step of the process alongside with this young person. So that's a little bit of an understanding of when it comes to gender affirming care for youth, transition related care for youth. Those are the things we're really talking about.
So let's talk about now what is being proposed at the federal level, and then how people can make public comments about them.
Thank you. Yeah. So in mid-December, just in time for us to have to deal with it over the holiday break, the Department of Health and Human Services, CMS, announced two proposed rules that are currently open for public comment that would, if they were ever to go into finalization, and it would have a significant impact on any kind of access to gender affirming care for youth, which, as I just established, is medically necessary and is life affirming. One of those regulations would be about restricting Medicaid and CHIP funding. So it would essentially eliminate the ability for a youth to access gender affirming care by eliminating the coverage of that care under Medicaid or CHIP. So that would obviously disproportionately impact low-income youth, and that is an egregious use of attempting to sort of hold hostage federal funding to change the outcomes for kids in a way that would be really detrimental. The other regulation is even more robustly bad in scope, and that is that it would bar hospitals that care for trans youth with gender affirming care from participating in Medicaid and Medicare. It would be a change to the conditions of participation for Medicaid and Medicare. So any hospitals that offer transition-related care for youth, for anyone under the age of 18, would no longer be able to bill Medicaid or Medicare for anything. So not just about this gender affirming care, that's the other regulation, but this, which is only proposed, but this would really, really decimate the ability for hospitals to be able to provide this care, and really threatens everyone's access to affordable care, because this is just a very strong example of a government going after a small, vulnerable population, but not necessarily stopping there. And that is something we all need to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean,
As
if they can engage in this kind of political coercion on your health care in this area that may not affect you, but understand that the door has now been opened to something that may impact you at some point.
Exactly. And this is an example of a federal government attempting to hold federal funding hostage in order to try and get a specific outcome that I would consider based on a lot of lies, and also and anti-science, and also targeting a very vulnerable population. And so that's what these proposed rules would do. And here's where the very important part comes in, because this is where we can make a difference, right? Because they are proposed, it means they're open for public comment. They're open for public comment for 60 days. That means through mid-February. And Fair Wisconsin has been organizing with a lot of other national coalition organizations, other state equality groups, to figure out a way, how do we submit robust public comment to try and get these rules stopped, but also in a safe and protected way? Because let's be real, families of trans kids, providers of this care, this is a really scary moment to be interacting with the federal government. And that's what public comment means, is your comment is not only public, but your information is now connected to a federal government website. So Fair Wisconsin has already held one webinar. We will be holding another one this Thursday, where we walk people through the process of what an impactful public comment could look like. What kind of story do you already possess as a family member of a trans kid, as a provider, as a general public person who just cares about access to affordable healthcare for these kids and for all of us? How do we make that impact statement into a public comment? And then how do we, as Fair Wisconsin, support you in doing it in a safe and protected way? And so we walk through that in the webinar. We are asking people to submit their comment to us so that we can put it into our organizational comment, where our contact information is a part of the federal registry, but not others. So that's really, really important. And also the part of this webinar that matters a lot is we talk about why public comment matters. Because I understand the reticence of thinking this federal government doesn't care about what I have to say. And, maybe that's true, but the rest of us do, because public comment really lays the groundwork for challenging these rules. Because when public comment comes through, when the federal government decides to finalize a rule, they are required by law to respond to the public comment in that final rule. And you know what? If they don't do it well, or they do it in a way that does not actually respond, but they think it does, that is where we have an opportunity to challenge. And so we have to have robust public comment to make that challenge possible once these rules really reach the end of that period.
All right. There we go. I'm sorry, Abby, my audio there cut out for a bit, but we've got a link that I've put in the Facebook comments. I'm adding to the YouTube comments as well. So the exact link is in the comment sections, but you can go to fairwisconsin.com and click events, and it will take you there as well, right?
Absolutely. And we will hold another before the end of the comment period, but this is a really great time to really put on the gas right now when it comes to learning about how to do this public comment. Give yourself enough time to make a really impactful statement, send it back to us, and we will make a difference as a community.
Very good. Abby, did I miss anything? Did we cover everything about both the legislature and these proposed rules at CMS? Anything else we need to add today?
Right. Thank you for asking. Anytime anyone asks that question, I always just go back directly to making sure that we send out a really strong message to our trans Wisconsinites right now. So, when I say that transition-related healthcare for kids is medically necessary, it's because we know our kids are necessary. And so just a message to our trans kids, their families, their medical providers, we see you, we are here to fight and protect you. We are so grateful you're here. Please stick with us. We're going to figure this out.
So well said, Abby. Thank you for that. Thank you for the messages you constantly bring us, and hope we can catch up again and show some progress being made on some of these fronts. Abigail Swetz is the Executive Director for Fair Wisconsin. Abby, thanks again. It's really good to see you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
All right. And again, you can head to fairwisconsin.com and click on events if you want to learn more. And the exact link is also in the comment sections of Facebook and YouTube. You know what else is going to go in the comment sections of Facebook and YouTube? The links to a couple of items in today's history lesson. And I'm going to have that in just a second here. I'm Pat Kreitlow, and you're up north. All right, kind of a short history lesson today. Alexander Hamilton, first United States Secretary of the Treasury, was born this day in 1755. So, of course, I can't resist. I'll put a link in, linking to the very beginning of the musical that bears his name. Ecologist and author Aldo Leopold was born this day in 1887. The late, great Clarence Clemens was born this day in 1942, passed away too early in 2011. I put a link to my favorite Clarence Clemens song. Of course, everybody knows, his work with Bruce Springsteen, but he had a couple of solo hits on his own, including the duet "You're a Friend of Mine" with Jackson Browne that I'll put a link into. Vicki Peterson, lead guitarist for the Bangles, turns 68 years old today. And the late Naomi Judd was born this day in 1946. In the history books, municipal officials in Wuhan, China announced the first recorded death from COVID-19 on this day in 2020. And on this day in 1964, the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Luther Terry, published his landmark report saying smoking may be hazardous to your health, sparking national and worldwide anti-smoking efforts. And again, just to get at how things have changed, I guess I wouldn't be surprised at a reversal even of smoking rules like this. I mean, we haven't had cigarette ads on TV in nearly 60 years as a result of that Surgeon General's report. And given the Surgeon Generals that we've seen under Donald Trump, I mean, who's to say where we go on this? So it helps that we acknowledge things like the original Surgeon General's report on smoking, which came out 61 years ago today. All right, our Do Something calendar, our question of the week, and I'll play a little video for you from Mandela Barnes, who was in the Cadott area late Friday as part of his campaign for governor. That's all coming up. I'm Pat Kreitlow. You're up north. All right, so since this is my warm-up act for my job at Up North News, my kind of personal get-ready exercise, let me thank you first for the initial round of responses to our latest question of the week. It's all part of my Sunday newsletter that you can sign up for over at upnorthnewswi.com. Click subscribe in the banner on top of the homepage. The question this week is less about a poll, and it's much more about your thoughts on decompression. Because look, things are bleak right now. Scott Ross gave me the word that's perfect for this age. There's a lot of assholery going on in the country right now, and while it's tempting to want to tune things out permanently, that's not what we should do. We need to stay informed. Fascists thrive on making people not want to pay attention to what it is that they're doing behind our backs. So you have clearly chosen to plug into the headlines. You're watching something like this, but are you doing enough to unplug now and then? And if so, what you doing? And we've had some great responses come in already. LJ walks 3 miles a day, reads books, volunteers at their local library, and watches movies, but says, quote, it's still not enough to fully unplug. Julie says, I go out and play with my dogs. Jeffrey B. listens to Audible books. Get this. Listens to Audible books while running, cycling, and even swimming. Jeffrey writes, it took a while to figure out how to make Bluetooth work when swimming. Now, I'd heard that once before, and I just wasn't sure it was a real thing, but apparently it is. So Bluetooth while swimming, listen to the audiobooks and pay attention. From Mary D., I delve into a good murder mystery, even a mediocre one, because in the murder mysteries, good triumphs over evil, and a bit of justice is achieved, even if it's just in a novel. Other suggestions were going to the gym, listening to TED Talks, jigsaw puzzles, and then personally, I thanked Sherry for being my lifetime cribbage partner. We have played thousands of rounds of cribbage over the decades. So what about you? You can throw a suggestion in the comments or email something, and maybe I'll include it in next Sunday's newsletter with some of these others and help more of our neighbors stay plugged in, but not to the point of burnout. Okay? All right, I don't have any great new additions on the Do Something calendar. This Tuesday evening, tomorrow evening, Chippewa Valley Indivisible is having a training and presentation on their ICE rapid response tactics. And so look for Chippewa Valley Indivisible on Facebook. On Friday will be the rescheduled Pete Buttigieg Town Hall in the La Crosse area. Again, that's Friday. Next Tuesday, January 20th, will mark 1 year in office for Donald Trump's second term. So a lot of folks are going to be taking to the streets and getting local events organized for what's called the Free America Walkout. And so we'll try to have some more information on local events a little later in the week, but it's supposed to take place next week, Tuesday the 20th at 2 p.m. local time. On that same day, next Tuesday, Main Street Action, a group representing small businesses and families, is planning a day of grassroots activity at the state capitol, and Sean Fettiplace will be joining us on Thursday live at 9 a.m. to talk about that and about how Main Street Action is putting together the first gubernatorial forum of the year. It's got all 7 of the Democratic candidates that you're seeing there: Barnes, Brennan, Crowley, Hong, Hughes, Rodriguez, and Royce, all in the Milwaukee area. And our friend Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area will be the monitor of that. So look for that next week. All right, former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes has been campaigning up north for governor. That included a farm stop in Cadott late Friday. So I got to visit with him as he was visiting with several Chippewa County farmers who have, frankly, had it with tariffs. They've had it with a Congress that is jacking up their health insurance costs. They have had it with corporate monopolies that have hurt their income. In other words, they've had it with the congressman from up north, Tom Tiffany, who has supported all of these measures. Barnes notes that this is all in line with the consolidation and deregulation in our cities, not just our rural areas, and that has led to so much outsourcing, all of it supported by Congressman Tiffany, who is the leading Republican candidate for governor. Here's a little of what Mandela Barnes had to say during the session at in the barn over at Les Danielson's place near Cadott, and then in an interview afterwards outside the barn as well.
A handful of people made a whole lot of money off of those business decisions, but a whole community lost a lot of opportunity, and that's the same thing that's going on here with consolidation. It's the same things going on even with the tariffs. Like, where is the money? You're not getting the money. This community isn't getting the money. And we need leaders who are going to stand up and be bold and know that they aren't going to go into those sort of fights alone, so that people can get what they have rightfully earned. People aren't looking for a handout. We're not trying to just give away stuff to people. A lot of folks have worked very hard, played by the rules, and still get screwed over. The idea that someone wants to be governor who has put our small family farmers on the back burner time and time again is pretty ridiculous. And whether it's migrant labor, whether it's healthcare, he has failed us time and time again. Folks are talking about the increase in healthcare premiums going up from about $300 to $1,300, and all of a sudden deciding to forego health insurance altogether, creating another risk is ridiculous. And people have written to him, people have pled with Tom Tiffany about voting to extend those tax credits. Now, fortunately, the House did pass it, but Tom Tiffany wasn't one of the people that took a vote to make life easier for people.
No, he did not. And Derek Van Orden did. He was one of 17 Republicans who crossed over and voted yes. But as I noted in the Sunday newsletter, that's not a change of heart by Derek Van Orden. That's what's called a free pass that vulnerable members get to pretend to be in favor of something that they're not. And Derek Van Orden has been, even after taking that safe vote, went right back to saying if it were up to him, he'd get rid of the Affordable Care Act entirely. And since he has no alternative in place, that's his way of saying he is perfectly good with health insurance companies continuing to just shake down Americans. And Derek Van Orden's not going to lift a finger even after that vote that came from some House Republicans late last week. All right, a reminder that tomorrow, no show here, but at 9 a.m., if you head over to the WXCO YouTube page at 98.9 WXCO, look for that on YouTube. I'll be on Chad Holmes' program. But then at 9 a.m. the rest of the week, I'll be here with Sean O'Malley talking about the economy. On Thursday with Sean Fettiplace from Main Street Alliance. And then Dr. Kristen Lyerly, of course, joins us on Friday. And that is all coming up at 9 a.m. on both the Facebook and YouTube pages. We'd love to have you along for that and more. Okay, again, sign up for the newsletters over at upnorthnewswi.com. It's time for me to get over to my day job, so keep sharing those Up North News social media posts. Thanks for all the kind words. Thank you for taking time to get a little information about Wisconsin and beyond so that you can feel empowered and not overwhelmed when it comes to making our way forward in the new year. I'm Pat Kreitlow. See you Wednesday for another beautiful morning up north.